I haven't been uncomfortable. You know, I haven't really been scared like I thought I might be. You know, there's always questions of asylum and, you know, where I'm going to stay and how these things work out. But regardless of what happens, if I if I end up in chains in Guantanamo, I can live with that.
Glenn, how you doing? How are things in Rio? Is it Carnival yet?
It's always Carnival in Rio.
Yeah, I'll bet it is for you.
I have a quick question for you, Mr. Trump. How do you feel about the newspapers that printed what Snowden gave them? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's disgraceful. I mean, that's what they do, and
it's a
I
story.
guess you can't really hold
story.
it. Yeah, I mean, they have information. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could say, couldn't you big folks, come on, give us a break? But how does he get this information? Here's a guy didn't even graduate from high school. He was a high school dropout. How did he get the job in the first place? Where did he come from? And now he's traveling the world, and everybody's protecting him. It really is going to be the next Snowden?
How do we protect ourselves in the future?
Well, unless the retribution is swift and really strong, you're going to have other people coming out with more information than he's got.
He feels very strongly that we must not have the Ellsberg thing be a reason for dissension in the Bureau. That could really I just say that we've got to keep our eye on the main ball. The main ball's Ellsberg. We got to get this son of a bitch.
But let me, one last thing, because you asked a final question. No, I'm not going to be scrambling jets to get a 29-year-old hacker.
I think it is time in this country to quit making national heroes out of those who steal secrets and publish them in the newspapers.
Well, now, George Orwell is nothing by comparison. European politicians are furious over claims that the United States spied on EU offices in Washington and New York, describing them, if true, as abhorrent, intolerable, and treating us like the enemy.
No, I think that's fairly typical treatment of the mainstream, you know, what we might loosely term this sort of establishment right-wing sort of media. Yeah, I mean, the immediate default position of any centre of power when threatened from the outside is to blame the messenger rather than look at the message. You find that in all sorts of inquiries that you might make in terms of investigations into anything from a powerful football club to a powerful armed force to a powerful government. Of course they will seek to discredit the messenger if they don't like the message. Human nature.
It's not particularly newsworthy that you're calling for Snowden to be prosecuted, because we've seen that over the past few days. But to take it another step and say the journalists who published the information, that, you know, the guys who published what he leaked, that they should face prosecution, that is news.
And has anyone asked you to destroy this information or hand it over?
Well, it is a matter of public record that the Cabinet Secretary came and asked me to destroy the entire cache of documents. So yes.
Right, but you haven't done so?
No, that is also a matter of public record.
I love this country. Do you love this country?
How do you answer that kind of question?
Final question for you, but I'd like you to hang around. I just want to get Pete Williams in here as well. To the extent that you have aided and abetted Snowden, even in his current movements. Why shouldn't you, Mr. Greenwald, be charged with a crime?
For a year. The move ends his month of limbo in the transit area of Moscow's main airport. He managed to slip away unseen. A Russian lawyer who's been helping him says he's gone to a secret location. I mean, if anything, I think the Snowden story has been a big inspiration to a lot of people in the journalists community. That it was a massive story that they blew open, and there's nothing better than doing that. They did it in a, you know, the Guardian are very, very clear about arguing about all the responsible steps that they took. And so actually, I think, you know, I think most journalists look at that story, regardless of their personal opinion on whether they think damage has been done, and they will think, you know, what an amazing story.
I think there needs to be a wider debate about this, and actually I think it's welcome the likes of Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, who I think are genuine American heroes, because what they've done is they've shone a light on the dark recesses of power, how extensive this spying is. They've revealed secrets like the fact, for example, some of the outrageous things that have happened in Iraq because of the American occupation. The results, for example, of drone attacks in Pakistan, which are increasing the risk of terrorism, not reducing it. And instead what we should be doing is, instead of having this spying on allies, on ordinary people as well, who are law-abiding people going about their own business, we should make sure the security services are accountable, that they don't have this argument, they're protecting our liberty, therefore they can do exactly what they want, and we actually have an accountable security service, and we actually have freedom of information to know exactly the sorts of things they're doing in our...
All right. Pete Hitchens.
Well, anyone who steps out of line and takes on in a courageous way how power exercises itself is likely to get shredded in quite extreme fashion. So what we'll see, and we do see, are journalists who do expose power and how it operates, attempts to humiliate them, to trash their reputation. By trashing their reputation, the idea is to neutralise them. To prevent people taking that argument seriously. You don't have to engage them with their arguments. You can ignore their arguments altogether by simply saying, well, these people are not credible, or they have bad intentions or malign intentions. When actually, as I say, these are people I think who should be regarded as courageous individuals who've done a democratic service by informing the people of the United States and other countries of what US governments are doing secretly, without accountability and without transparency, what they're doing in the name of all of us, and obviously that will mean people like Glenn and Edward Snowden getting a bit of a kicking. I think they expect that. They expect it to have taken place. And like Edward Snowden, is obviously his personal sacrifice is huge. I mean, he will never have a secure life unless something changes quite dramatically. But that, unfortunately, is part of what they've done entails.
A certain degree of privacy is regarded as very important in the doing of diplomacy. And also I think one of the most embarrassing things is that here you have the Americans saying, oh, this is what one country or one government says about another government. So it's third-party stuff. It's not just what the Americans think. It's gossip. It's opinion. It's all the sort of everyday traffic of trying to understand how the world works. And it's revealing other people's secrets.
Any difference? I mean, you're always fighting against the tide. You're always trying to find out what governments don't want you to find out. That's our job. Our job is to find out what people don't want us to know. The Guardian did that in an excellent way, and we will carry on doing that. And they're not going to be able to stop us.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War assembled in the nation's capital for a mass protest. For the most part orderly, minor scuffles did occur between the demonstrators and hecklers.
I am very disappointed in this administration and shocked that they expanded the surveillance state. I don't think that's what people who voted for the president voted for. I think the attack, obviously on our civil liberties and privacy, but also on the free press. The attack on journalists who are just trying to let people know what people up there on Capitol Hill don't want them to know is really shameful.
The American people cannot and should not be asked to support a policy which involves the overriding issues of war and peace unless they know the truth about that policy.
So
So you think the program is good, the revealing was bad?
Exactly. And I think this notion that, what's his name?
Snowden.
Yeah, Snowden. I think he's a traitor. I think he's done enormous damage to the country.
The United States is therefore prepared, as the President determined, to take all necessary steps. The Pentagon protest was less violent in its second day of sitting in. The two-day protest ends with over 600 arrested, and the widespread opinion that the demonstration made everyone a loser.
Well, what the Snowden material reveals is material which raises fundamental public concerns about surveillance, about the appropriate ways of having oversight of that material, of the use of secret courts, and appropriate balances between security and privacy, freedom of speech, liberty, and how society deals with all that. That is an important public debate to be had, which even President Obama has recognized. It's been the subject of a very narrow congressional debate, and so therefore this is a subject of high public importance which journalists ought to be writing about.
I think it's made everyone more aware that, just how much we're being monitored, your emails, your phone calls, etc. So I think in that way, people are far more security conscious now. And, people are, whereas in the past I would send an email or make a call, with the possibility that it may be possibly paid for one, but now we're guaranteed it. There's very few ways. People are going back to the old-fashioned method of writing each other letters because people simply can't open every letter going. So I mean, the advancement in the war on terror has actually made the free press and the free world, it's quite a dangerous place to operate now.
Surveillance of communications is another essential tool to pursue and stop terrorists. Existing law was written in the era of rotary telephones. This new law that I signed today will allow surveillance of all communications used by terrorists, including emails, the internet, and cell phones.
The United States is therefore prepared, as the President determined, to take all necessary steps.
This is a salutary lesson for all of us that we want to be able to lead our own lives freely. We don't want to all be under state surveillance all the time. It's what the US and West used to complain about over the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc. This is far greater than any surveillance that ever happened in the Soviet Bloc era.
The change in technology through internet, through surveillance systems, mean that there was an awful lot of information collected on behalf of citizens. There's a very close relationship between security services, police action, and military action, which politicians are never told about and have great difficulty in finding out about. So in a democratic society, those that are in an elected position shouldn't ever be too comfortable about their positions, because there are very powerful forces that often use elected politicians as a kind of veneer or facade in order for them to carry out their operations.
I'm ultimately not going to give you a personal opinion on the rights and wrongs, because I have to guard my impartiality. I accept that there are lots of people who think Edward Snowden has done great damage to intelligence. I've yet to see any hard evidence of him putting lives at risk. Not that that will be very easy. I can also say that, you know, we've seen a lot of people change the way they think about intelligence, and we saw Barack Obama announcing just a few days ago changes to the way the intelligence community will operate.
It should be encouraged. You know, these kind of studies should be encouraged. You know, where when your governments and the governments who wield the most power in the free world are resorting to these kind of techniques, I think that's where journalism should come into its own, and we should not be legislated out or be gagged by the NSA or any other, you know, of the American security services. You know, we're stepping backwards in time. You know, I mean, America, the West, fought communism for that reason. You know, everybody was bugged, everyone was an informer. The Stasi in East Germany monitored everything. You know, the days of the Cold War are meant to be over, only to find that our own governments and the British governments are now spying on us more than the Stasi or the KGB or any of the old Soviet agencies used to. It's quite disgusting that we're under that level of surveillance now, and under the flimsy excuse of the war on terror.
Greetings GCHQ. We are anonymous. Over the past several months, it has been brought to our attention that you have been abusing the people's rights and privacy, using secret coded operations, such as Five Eyes and more recently, Operation Optic Nerve, where it has come to light that you have not only been invading your own innocent citizens' privacy, you have completely ignored any kind of rights of your citizens, including taking still pictures from over 1.8 million people via webcam, not criminals, not terrorists, not any kind of threat, but from your very own people, of which the majority being completely unaware, and also completely innocent.
This administration also puts forward a false choice between the liberties we cherish and the security we provide. I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. That means no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime.
What the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls.
And it's not what is necessary to defeat the terrorists.
But by sifting through this so-called metadata, they may identify potential leads with respect to folks who might engage in terrorism.
We will again set an example for the world that the law is not subject to the whims of stubborn rulers and that justice is not arbitrary. This administration acts like violating civil liberties is the way to enhance our security. It is not. There are no shortcuts to protecting America.
I think it's pretty extraordinary that anybody who would call themselves a journalist would publicly muse about whether or not other journalists should be charged with felonies. The assumption in your question, David, is completely without evidence, the idea that I've aided and abetted him in any way. The scandal that arose in Washington before our stories began was about the fact that the Obama administration is trying to criminalize investigative journalism by going through the emails and phone records of AP reporters, accusing a Fox News journalist of the theory that you just embraced, being a co-conspirator with felonies for working with sources. If you want to embrace that theory, it means that every investigative journalist in the United States who works with their sources, who receives classified information, is a criminal. And it's precisely those theories and precisely that climate that has become so menacing in the United States. Is why the New Yorker's Jane Mayer said investigative reporting has come to a standstill, her word, as a result of the theories that you just referenced.
If you are a law-abiding citizen of this country, going about your business and your personal life, you have nothing to fear. Nothing to fear.